The Idaho student murders. A crime that shattered a community. It was a crisp November morning in a quiet college town in Idaho, a place where students shared laughter on porches, where nights ended with pizza runs and early mornings began with lectures and exams. But on November 13th, 2022, that illusion of safety vanished forever. 4 bright young lives were taken inside a house near campus, a crime so brutal and baffling it shook not only the town of Moscow, but the entire nation. This is the story of the Idaho student murders, who the victims were, what investigators uncovered, how the suspect was found, and how a community continues to carry scars from a night of unimaginable violence. Moscow, Idaho, population just under 26,000, wasn't the kind of place you'd expect to see in headlines. Tucked among rolling hills and wheat fields, it was a town defined by the University of Idaho, where students lived, studied, and felt at ease walking home at night. The King Road neighborhood where the victims lived was a lively off-campus community. Parties, music, and porch gatherings filled the weekends. For students, it was freedom mixed with family. Everyone knew everyone. But behind that sense of small-town security, a single house would soon become a symbol of horror. Kaylee Goncalves was 21, ambitious and full of light. She had just purchased a new car and was preparing to move to Texas for her dream job in tech. Her friends remembered her as fiercely loyal, someone who lifted others up. Madison Mogen, also 21, was Kaylee's best friend since childhood. They were inseparable, often finishing each other's sentences. Maddie was studying marketing, known for her creativity and kindness, and she shared a bond with Kaylee that friends said felt more like sisters than friends. Xana Kernodle, 20, brought a fearless energy to every room. A junior studying marketing, she was remembered for her sense of humor and warmth. She loved spending time with her friends and her boyfriend, Ethan. Ethan Chapin, 20, was the youngest of triplets. A freshman studying recreation, sport, and tourism management, he was cheerful, athletic, and grounded. He and Xana had been dating, and friends described them as inseparable. These weren't just names in a headline. They were young lives filled with laughter, love, and ambition. Futures that should have stretched decades ahead, cut short in one night. Saturday evening began like so many others in Moscow. Kaylee and Madison went downtown.
Hello. Hi.
Welcome back.
Thanks. I think I would like the
Okay.
Stopping at a bar called the Corner Club. Later, they were seen ordering food at a late-night truck, laughing together as they waited. Around the same time, Ethan and Xana attended a fraternity party just blocks away. By 1:45 a.m., the group began to return to the 3-story house on King Road. Surveillance cameras and phone records later confirmed their movements. By 2 a.m., lights were off and the neighborhood had quieted. But sometime between 3 and 4 a.m., an intruder slipped into the house. What unfolded inside was swift, violent, and terrifying. 4 students were killed with a knife in what investigators would later describe as one of the most brutal crimes they had ever seen. 2 other roommates, asleep on the lower floors, survived. One reported hearing strange noises, crying, thuds, and even a voice saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you."
That one right there.
Who's Xana?
Xana is the girl in there.
Is the girl that this one?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you spell her name?
At one point, she opened her door and saw a masked figure leaving through the sliding door. Shocked and frozen, she locked her door and stayed inside until morning.
She's the girl that I was talking about, Kaylee, who I just heard her go upstairs and run back downstairs.
And the guy that lives here.
It wasn't until late the next morning that the tragedy came to light. Around 11:58 a.m., a 911 call was placed from inside the house, reporting an unconscious person. When police arrived, they were met with a scene far worse than they imagined.
Where's she at? Yep. Where's she at? Where's she at?
The 4 students were dead. The house, once filled with the noise of college life, was now a crime scene. News spread instantly. Students panicked. Parents rushed to pick up their children. The university canceled classes. Moscow, a town that once felt untouched by danger, was plunged into fear and grief. The Moscow Police Department, aided by the Idaho State Police and FBI, launched one of the largest investigations in state history. Detectives combed through the house, collected fingerprints, swabbed for DNA, and canvassed the neighborhood for security footage. Rumors swirled. Was this a targeted attack? A random act? Police struggled to balance public pressure with the need to protect the investigation. The lack of immediate answers frustrated families and fueled speculation online. But quietly, investigators were piecing together a puzzle that would eventually point to a single suspect. 2 breakthroughs became critical. First, multiple cameras caught a white Hyundai Elantra circling the King Road area in the early morning hours of November 13th. Investigators believed the driver could be their suspect. Second, at the crime scene, a leather knife sheath was discovered near one of the victims. On its button clasp, investigators recovered DNA. Though partial, it was enough to be compared in national databases. These two clues, a car and a fragment of DNA, would eventually unravel the case. By late December, investigators had narrowed in on Bryan Kohberger, a 28-year-old PhD student studying criminology at Washington State University, just 10 miles from Moscow. Kohberger drove a white Hyundai Elantra matching the description. Cell. Phone records showed his device near the King Road house, multiple times in the months before the murders. A chilling sign he may have been surveilling the victims. On the night of the killings, his phone was off during the critical window, but reappeared shortly after in nearby Pullman, Washington in Pennsylvania, where Kohberger traveled for the holidays. Investigators collected trash from his parents' home. DNA from his father matched the profile on the knife sheath, confirming investigators were on the right trail. On December 30th, 2022, a tactical team moved in on Kohberger's parents' home in the early morning darkness. He was taken into custody without incident. Images of the once promising criminology student in handcuffs stunned the nation. The suspect's background only deepened the mystery. A graduate student studying the psychology of crime, he had conducted surveys about criminal thought patterns. He had attended lectures on serial killers. Yet now, he stood accused of one of the most shocking student murders in modern history. Back in Idaho, Kohberger was indicted on 4 counts of murder and 1 count of burglary. Prosecutors laid out the evidence: the DNA on the sheath, the surveillance car footage, the cell phone records. Defense attorneys countered, raising questions about contamination, timing, and investigative bias. For the families, every hearing reopened wounds. They sat in the courtroom, often face to face with the accused, determined to see justice for their children.
Accusations he made in there are very concerning. The kinds of accusations, if true, that would get people disbarred.
The trial process became not just a search for accountability, but a test of patience, resilience, and faith in the system. In Moscow, the aftermath was profound. Students returned to campus with unease. The King Road house was eventually boarded up, then slated for demolition to help the community heal. Vigils and memorials honored Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan. Scholarships were created in their names, but the scars remain. Parents, classmates, and friends carry the weight of lives stolen too soon. The case sparked conversations about campus safety, mental health, and the darkness that can sometimes hide in plain sight. The Idaho student murders weren't just a crime. They were a turning point for a community that thought it was safe. 4 futures full of promise were stolen in one night. Yet their memories live on, not in fear, but in the legacy of love, resilience, and community they left behind. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. What lessons should we take from this tragedy? And how do we balance openness with safety in our communities? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for more deep dives into true crime stories told with respect and care.